Hello everyone and welcome to a Fallout 76, Fallout, Outer Worlds, Bethesda, Microsoft, okay, who knows at this point. Let's just call it a news video. In a surprising announcement today, we learned that Microsoft has acquired Zenimax Media, which is the current parent company of Bethesda Game Studios, makers, of course, of the Fallout series and Fallout 76, along with a plethora of other titles. Microsoft also already owns Obsidian Entertainment, makers of Fallout New Vegas, and The Outer Worlds, and many of the people involved with those games worked on the original Fallout series. On top of that, they also own In Exile Entertainment, which is essentially Interplay, the original studio that produced Fallout, and its spiritual predecessor, Wasteland. It's headed by Brian Fargo, who ran Interplay and was one of the original creators of Fallout, so this is quite an interesting little arranged marriage. Basically, almost everyone who ever had anything substantive to do with Fallout are all working for the same company now. Very interesting indeed. Now, before we go too far, remember, if you like this video, do go ahead and hit the like button or subscribe. There's always a ton of Fallout 76, Fallout, and now Outer Worlds content on the channel for you to look forward to. Alright, getting back to it. I am by no means an expert on the intricacies of the corporate gaming hierarchy, so I'm not going to speculate too deeply on the business end of things. Instead, I want to talk about 6 things that I hope will happen as a result of this merger. How I hope they'll impact Fallout 76, the Fallout series as a whole, and even the Outer Worlds. The list is presented in no particular order, and while I will discuss maybe what I see as the likelihood of certain things, I really have no way to be sure of that. It's just gut feelings at this point. But I do think all of these things are within the realm of possibility. But that's probably as far as we should go as far as committing to them. For now, let's just have a little fun and talk about our hopes and dreams. Number 1, I hope this leads to more investment in Fallout 76. Microsoft isn't going to be interested in carrying a game that doesn't perform well financially or that has a bad reputation. They also have a pretty good reputation themselves for quality when it comes to gaming, so they're going to be even less interested in carrying this title that gets regularly lambasted for its bugs, flaws, and notorious exploits. Fortunately, there's a way to fix all those things. Throw money at them, which is good because Microsoft has money, lots of money. Fixing bugs and exploits in the tech and gaming world largely comes down to the amount of time developers have to commit or the number of people available to work on the problem. That time and those people all cost money, which, as I mentioned, is something Microsoft has plenty of. They also own a great big pile of game studios that are filled with people who are certainly capable of fixing bugs. They could put more manpower on the task by hiring more programmers or by lending out staff from other studios. Either way, a massive bug squashing effort is well within the means of a company like Microsoft. Squashing those bugs is key to improving Fallout 76's reputation and ensuring that new Game Pass players have an enjoyable enough experience that they keep coming back for more. It's pretty common for companies that are about to be acquired to simply stop spending money. Retailers, as an example, might put off store remodels and repairs, opting to let the new owners handle it. I wonder if something like that may have been happening with Fallout 76, with Zenimax only making the bare minimum investment needed to keep it going, but not to get it polished up into tip-top condition. Time will tell, but I wouldn't be surprised to see some effort made to this end. Number 2, and this goes hand in hand with the first one, I hope we see more story content for Fallout 76. Everybody knows that the thing that draws us into Fallout is its story, its characters, and the feel of its world. That's the core of the experience. This isn't going to be lost on Microsoft, who are also certainly aware of the spike in popularity and positive opinions that the game saw when Wastelanders was released. While Bethesda, in the midst of an acquisition effort, might not have been eager to dump a lot of cash on deep story expansions, Microsoft will understand that that's what's going to grow the game. Growing the game with ever-evolving content is also what's going to keep people subscribed to Game Pass, so they can keep coming back, and every time something new happens, they get to experience it. At the end of the day, Game Pass is what this acquisition is all about. What Bethesda has done with Fallout 76's world and story is very interesting. Rather than simply expanding the world with each expansion, they're building story on top of story. They're making changes to the world with each iteration, so the game is evolving as we play over time. This means that if you want to experience everything, you'd better jump in now, because a year from now, things are going to be different. While that approach could be dangerous or potentially alienating, I think it's really interesting. And I think Microsoft would agree, at least from the perspective of it benefiting Game Pass. It can be used to create a sort of fear of missing out and push people to get the game on Game Pass now so they get to experience each iteration of the world. The key to all that success is ongoing story content. Story content is expensive. It needs to be written, programmed, and voice actors need to be paid to perform the roles. That's why we've only seen a little bit of it in the first 2 years, but hopefully that changes now that someone with substantially deeper pockets has taken over. Number 3. I hope we see some creative cross-pollination. As I mentioned in the intro, for the first time, pretty much everyone who's ever had anything to do with Fallout is now employed by one company, and that one company actually also owns Fallout. While every Fallout fan has their favorite games in the series, I think it's absolutely fair to say that each title has brought something to the table that is unique to it. Interplay created a phenomenal overall concept and amazing lore to build a world around. Bethesda took all of that and built an amazing world space that makes the games feel incredibly immersive. Obsidian added exceptional character writing, story arcs, dialogue, and voice production to the mix. What if we could have all of those things in one game? Until now, that just wasn't realistic. And it still may not be, creative people's egos being what they are and schedules being busy and all, but I can dream. There's now no reason to limit things to just one mind. Incorporate the insights of all the brilliant people involved in this series, and we might just see the most incredible Fallout games yet. Not to mention how beneficial that could be for a game like The Outer Worlds, which is loaded with great characters and stories, but lacks the world depth and exploration that are so inherent to the Bethesda Fallout experience. The opportunity to combine all of those concepts is tantalizing. We'll just have to wait and see if it happens. Number 4. Piggybacking on the last one, I hope that we see expansions for Fallout 76 written by some of those iconic individuals who currently work for Obsidian and In Exile. Now, this isn't a knock on the Bethesda writers. Fallout 3 is my favorite game in the series and probably my favorite game of all time, and I think they did a phenomenal job with Wastelanders. But this would just be really fucking cool. It would be a total change of pace for the game, which would keep it fresh, and it would perhaps bring things a bit more back in line with the feel of the older Fallout games. It would also be a huge marketing opportunity. What's that you say? You don't like Fallout 76 because it's not a real Fallout game? Because it isn't written by the real Fallout writers? Well, have I got a bridge to sell you? It would help alleviate some of the negative stigma associated with 76, and would likely bring some reluctant fans to the table, and again, it would incentivize Game Pass. Why wouldn't you try it if it's included? Number 5, Fallout New Vegas 2. That's right, I said it, and I believe it's a possibility. New Vegas is widely regarded as one of, if not the very best Fallout game. People want a follow-up, they want a sequel, they want to see what's happening in that part of the world. While that seemed unlikely with Bethesda and Obsidian being separate companies, with them now both under the same corporate umbrella, it seems like it's more plausible. Obsidian, of course, put out this cheeky little tweet today to tease us, but I'm hoping it's a sign of things to come, and here's why. This is a huge acquisition for Microsoft. They're going to want to capitalize on every major gaming brand involved in it as soon as possible. While it's likely that Starfield, Bethesda's next big title, will show up next year and Elder Scrolls 6 will roll out a few years later, as of now, aside from Fallout 76, we're probably nearly a decade away from another mainline Fallout title. While some new content for 76 could satiate the urge to capitalize, that doesn't come close to what an entirely new title would do. After all the vitriol that has followed Fallout 76, a single-player title made by Obsidian would be incredibly desirable. Fans are already salivating at the thought. Personally, I'd love to see it. As much as I enjoy Fallout 76, I wouldn't turn my nose up at the chance to go back to the West Coast. Number 6, and my final hope and dream for the Fallout series in light of this acquisition, is remakes of all the old Fallout games. All of them. Not just 3 in New Vegas, but also 1 and 2, and maybe even Tactics. What Bethesda did for Fallout, the big thing they did was make it popular. Bringing it into the 3D first-person shooter space made it much more appealing and digestible for modern gamers. Sure, everyone wants to see an updated version of 3 in New Vegas, that's a given because they're great and everyone knows them, and they just want to see it because the gameplay is maybe a little bit stale now. But I want to see the originals done in 3D. 1, 2, and maybe Tactics. I've played them, they're great games, but the experience just isn't the same. As someone who was introduced to Fallout with Fallout 3, the whole top-down, turn-based combat thing, it just doesn't trip my trigger. I imagine that most modern Fallout fans haven't even tried them, especially if they only play on consoles where the originals have never been available. And this is where the value proposition is for Microsoft. Fallout 1 and 2 have never been available on any console. Offering that experience on Xbox as an exclusive or a timed exclusive could be very lucrative and again, quite the incentive for Game Pass. The same can be said about 3 in New Vegas, though they might not be as much of a draw as Fallout 1 and 2. For a lot of players, those would essentially be brand new games. While a studio like Bethesda might have toyed with ideas like this in the past, actually executing them would be a gamble, and an expensive one. If you're going to take an expensive risk for an independent studio, even one the size of Bethesda, taking that risk on a new title that utilizes your creative talents and investments is going to be more appealing than just remaking old stuff. For Microsoft, that's much less of an issue. Microsoft doesn't need each title to make X number of dollars to ensure funding for the next title in the pipeline. They don't have any creative skin in the game either. All they care about is increasing the flow of content for Game Pass to continually boost its value for consumers. Remakes of Fallout 1, 2, 3, and New Vegas would add a substantial chunk of content to that library, and while it would take work and investment, they don't need to reinvent the wheel. The games are already great. The writing is done. At least the majority of the voice acting is done, though you might need to add some things to the early games. So all of this wouldn't be such a massive mountain to climb to get these produced and released. Time will tell if any of my hopes and dreams are even remotely realistic, but I hope that at least some of them see the light of day. For now, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that things go smoothly for Fallout 76, and also that the acquisition means nothing but good things for the people we've all gotten to know as a community from Bethesda, anyone from the community managers to the people working on the game. I've lived through a number of corporate acquisitions in my professional life, and it can be a profoundly stressful time. The unknown is tough on all of us when it comes to our livelihoods. Even if we're told that everything will be okay, it can be hard to feel secure in that until everything shakes out. So in closing, if you bump into any of those people on social media or in-game, be sure to be kind to them. I'm sure they'll appreciate it. Other than that, if you liked this video and want to see more, go ahead and subscribe. Do you have some hopes and dreams of your own? Leave them in the comments. I'm interested to hear what people hope to see from all of this. Let's just keep it civil. Till next time, I'm Fisty McRib.